Hello, everyone. This is Devin Thorpe, Forbes contributor covering social entrepreneurship and impact investing, and I'm so excited to have with us a very special guest, a remarkable woman. Her name is Elizabeth Dearborn Hughes, and she is the founder of the Akilah Institute, an African institution of higher learning that's designed to help women in Africa to get fair and good education. Elizabeth, thank you very much for joining us today. It's just a delight to have you.
Thank you for having me. Well,
tell us a little bit of your history. How did you come to launch, should we call it a college, a school, and what do we call this thing, and how did you come to start this?
Sure, yeah, so the Akilah Institute is an accredited college, so we are higher education. And it came about because I actually moved to Rwanda about 8 years ago. So right after I graduated from university myself, moved over there because I was fascinated with the history of Rwanda and the genocide and what was happening in the post-conflict reconciliation process. And after doing volunteer work on some education projects there for about 2 years, I came up with the idea for Akilah with a British man who at the time was my friend and collaborator and is now my husband, Dave, and we came up with the idea because we wanted to create an environment where women could come and study in areas that would guarantee meaningful employment and higher levels of income for them.
That's an amazing ambition, and I commend you for doing it. I happened to be at a conference with the president of Rwanda just yesterday, and he's a remarkable man. Rwanda is a remarkable place that has, I think, an incredible character to it, wanting to emerge and recover from this dreadful history. How do you see it there on the ground?
Yeah, Rwanda is a remarkable place because the fact that President Kagame years ago said our vision for this country is not only to heal a population that's been torn apart by genocide, but more than that, we want to move from being a low-income country to a middle-income country within 20 years. And that's outstanding considering the challenges that they were facing. But what they've achieved now in terms of economic development, being one of the fastest growing economies in Africa, they've lifted 1.5 million people out of extreme poverty within the last 3 years. They've reduced infant mortality and raised life expectancy faster than any other developing country ever has. So I feel really lucky to work there because I think it's an incredible country, but also it's incubating a lot of really innovative ideas and development strategies right now that can be rolled out across Africa. So I feel like it's a great place to work, and the government and the president and the first lady have been incredibly supportive of Akilah and overall the idea of women both in the private sector and in the government.
Well, it's just remarkable what you're doing there. I commend you. So what do you tell us a little bit about the school and how it operates and the courses, the curriculum, the students. What's really going on there?
Sure. So we're in our 5th year of operations right now, and students can select to major in 3 different areas: entrepreneurship, information systems, or hospitality management. So 97% of our students are actually the first in their family to attend higher education. So they mostly come from rural, low-quality secondary schools. Most of their families work in subsistence agriculture. So they come to Akilah because they want to study in higher education, but to prepare for a career and to prepare for a leadership role. So when we designed our academic model, we worked really closely with the Rwandan private sector and the government to identify where are the gaps in the workforce and what are the fastest growing sectors of the economy. So how can we build a model that responds to that? Because unfortunately, around the world and in Africa, there is a major problem with youth unemployment and a gap between the education system and really where the jobs are. And so we wanted to ensure that our students were graduating with market-relevant skills.
How many students do you have in Rwanda now?
So this year we'll have a total of 350 full-time students. We'll grow to about 500 by next year. And but that's on our Rwanda and our Burundi campus because we just expanded into Burundi this year.
And how many students are in Burundi?
We have 75 in Burundi. So we just opened a few months ago, and we were actually approached by the government of Burundi after seeing our track record in Rwanda. So currently about 95% of our alumni have full-time employment within the professional workforce. So the Burundian government approached us and said, well, we want an Akilah campus in our country, so we just opened 4 months ago.
Wow, it's amazing. Wonderful stuff. It's so inspiring to think about what you're doing. I want to drill down on a really important question. I want to understand why you did this. You graduated from Vanderbilt and then you ended up in Rwanda. Why?
Honestly, the honest answer is I just couldn't understand why the genocide had happened. And I had not traveled much growing up. I hadn't spent any time in Africa. I was just so fascinated that something like this could happen in this day and age, with the international community standing by and watching what was happening. And Samantha Power's book, America in the Age of Genocide, had a big impact on me when I was in college. And truthfully, at the time, I thought I'd go to Rwanda and then maybe eventually become a human rights lawyer and work within the international human rights system. But after being in Rwanda, in the first few years that I was living there, it was so clear to me so quickly that really educating women and making sure that they were able to control their income and they were able to get good jobs, I felt like that was going to have the most profound impact on the community and on the country, being able to really fall in line with what the president's vision and the government's vision for the country. And it's critical that they have these educated leaders and that they have the workforce to build the economy.
What do you see as being the lessons from Rwanda? You've identified this as a rapidly growing country in terms of economy. They're doing things right in terms of trying to raise people out of poverty. What are the lessons that you take from this? What do we need to be doing in the rest of the world where we're struggling with growing economies and lifting people out of poverty?
Sure. So I think there's 2 really powerful lessons from Rwanda. One is that in 2008, they became the first country in the world to have a majority of women in parliament. And today, actually, 64% of their parliament is female. And I think that there's been direct implications of that in terms of legislation around women being able to inherit property, gender-based violence, all the way to their indicators in development and health, education, the economy, etc. And some of their most influential leaders, from the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, arguably the world's most effective Minister of Health, they're all women. And they've been in significant positions of power and leadership since after the war. So there's a lot of historical reasons for that. But I think that getting women at the negotiating table, whether it's the government or the private sector, is absolutely key. And I think, too, the lesson from Rwanda, the most powerful one that other countries can look at, is the fact it's been now exactly 20 years since the genocide started. And although Rwanda certainly had its challenges since then, there hasn't been renewed fighting. People live next door to the men that killed their families during the genocide. Yet there is this sense of forgiveness and reconciliation that it's really impossible to actually wrap your head around when you realize the level of tragedy that happened there. But Rwandans they believe so strongly in the vision of the country and coming together as one nation that forgiveness and reconciliation has actually become not just an issue of morality, but an issue of survival and rebuilding their country. And they believe so much in that, the potential of Rwanda to become a model for the rest of the world, that I think that's why they've been able to achieve all the other success that they've had.
It is a remarkable observation, really. In America, we struggle sometimes for Democrats and Republicans to get along, and in Rwanda, we have murderers and victims finding that they can get along. A remarkable measure of forgiveness and reconciliation, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And our students are generally between the ages of 18 and 30. So some of them have been born after the genocide. Some of them were young children who have very clear memories of what happened. And we have students who lost all of their family in the genocide. We have students whose fathers are currently in prison for committing genocide. So it is still very, very real. I mean, it's really just a baby step in terms of rebuilding a country. 20 years is not that long. But again, you meet young women, especially at Akilah, who say, there's no more Hutu, there's no more Tutsi. We're all Rwandans. We're working together to rebuild our country so that our children never have to suffer what we did. And I think it's incredibly inspiring.
How did the country come to have women in power? I take you at your word that is a huge factor in their progress. How did it come about?
So I think a lot of it is a cultural belief and traditional. When you look at Rwanda's history, that women really are the heads of their households in many ways. And when you see President Paul Kagame speak and other senior leaders in the government, and they talk about their childhoods, and many of them grew up in refugee camps in Uganda and Tanzania or in poor homes within Rwanda, and they talk about the roles that their mothers played and helping rebuild their communities and ensuring their survival in very difficult circumstances. And when President Kagame speaks, he says, how can you rebuild a country by excluding half of the population? But I think he's really gone so much above and beyond that to make sure that women are sitting at the negotiating table and are making very important decisions about the future of the country. And it goes all the way down to the local level. At the most local village level in Rwanda, you find women who are the heads of the village councils making important decisions about their villages and their neighborhoods.
How do other countries adopt that value? How do you teach other people, Americans, Europeans, Asians, how do you teach us to accept women as leaders?
Yeah, I think that one, for other African young women who I've worked with and who I know, they really look to Rwanda certainly as role models for what can happen and are inspired, in addition to women, whether it's in Liberia or in Malawi, where now women have become president. So having that role model is really powerful. And honestly, I think that some other African leaders have kind of mixed feelings about Rwanda because the Rwandan government has been so adamant in cracking down on corruption. I mean, there's just no tolerance for corruption in Rwanda at all. And I believe that that's responsible for so much of this progress as well. And so now other African civil society and communities are coming together and saying, if Rwanda can go through the worst tragedy in recent human history and still have this incredible economic development, then we can too. And so in a way, now African leaders are being held accountable in ways that they weren't before because people are looking to Rwanda's success and saying, we deserve this too, and we want to have a crackdown on corruption and more women in power. So it's really creating this tidal of a shift in public opinion across Africa.
Well, it is just inspiring. Before we let you go, I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about your experience as an entrepreneur in launching this business. What's the financial business model for Akilah Institute?
So we offer significant scholarship to our students because we really target women from low-income communities. So right now we offer about 80% scholarship to cover their tuition, but they're still responsible for about $500 a year. And for families that live off of $2 a day, that's a significant investment for them to make in their education. So we do partner with local banks so that they can take a student loan to cover their portion of that cost. We are obviously a nonprofit, so we raise money from individuals and family foundations around the world. And then we'll soon be rolling out additional programs like executive education, taking our training and offering it to other segments of the population to create additional revenue streams for Akilah.
Oh, very good. So if someone who's watching today is interested in giving money to support your program, how would they reach you and find you and give you some money?
Sure. So all of our information is on our website at akilahinstitute.org. And actually today is a particularly exciting day to go to our website because we just launched our own version of Pharrell Williams' Happy video. So we have our own music video, Happy in Burundi, that we just released for people to get a look at our campus in Burundi as well.
Fantastic. Well, Elizabeth, thank you very much for joining me today. You're an inspiration to everyone, and I really wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you very much for having me.
All righty, let's do some good.